How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Today, we're going to be speaking about the Yankees' struggles. Very disappointing homestand after going 4-2 on the West Coast. We're going to speak about the Tampa Bay Rays and why they are truly the alpha dogs of the American League. I'm going to give you my reasoning as to why the New York Mets must be sellers at this trade deadline. And I'm also going to speak on the happenings in the NL West as well as the AL East. Going to start it off here with the NHL. My finals pick for tonight, I don't have it in me to pick against the Florida Panthers. Florida Panthers will extend this series. My prediction going in was a 7-game outcome, and I am sticking with it. And the reason why is because although they lost a heartbreaker at home to go down 3-1, at no point in that game did they show that they do not have resolve or that they're not still fighting. I think they're going to pick up a W, and I still think this thing is going to go 7. My NBA Finals pick for tonight, I am also going with the dog here. I've got the Miami Heat extending things. Miami has done everything the hard way this year. They almost blew a 3-0 lead in the last series. But being an 8 seed, doing what they've done for the season, I just can't see an Eric Spoelstra-led team facing elimination not play their best game of the night. Best game of the season, I should say. And I will say this. In the event that the Miami Heat do get beat today, it will be in classic fashion, and they will give a 125% effort. I expect a lot of their role players to step up tonight and give Denver their second loss of this series on their home floor. It's going to be a very good game. Just bear with me, guys. I am in the process of bringing in my friend. All right, with me, say hello. It is my buddy, you know this guy, Brett Bandick. He is driving into work, but he decided to join me, which I appreciate. Brett, say hi, buddy.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday. Start to a new week, and I want to apologize ahead of time if I decide to drop a few F-bombs depending on I-4 traffic. So, I do apologize ahead of time if that does happen. So, but no, moving on. No, it's going to be a good night for sports. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Brett, I'm going to ask you to lower your car volume and speak up a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I hear you, but I also hear the show in the background. You got to lower that volume and just talk directly to me. Bretsky, this ain't going to work. If you want on, I'm going to send you a quick invite. This ain't going to work.
All right, my apologies.
You want an invite?
Yeah.
All right. Bear with me. I apologize, guys. I'm going to get my guy Brett in here, make it a two-man show.
Bear with me.
All right, Brett, your link is sent. Get in here as soon as you could, bud. All right, Brett, your link is sent. Get in here as soon as you could, bud. All right, sorry about that, guys. Brett should be joining me momentarily. In the meantime, I'm going to hit on some MLB. The Diamondbacks are for real, folks, maintaining the lead in the NL West while the Dodgers drop 2 of 3 against Philly. They're a feel-good story, similar to what the Tampa Bay Rays have been able to do in the American League East is essentially what the Diamondbacks are doing this year. We've become accustomed to the Rays being that team, not so much the Diamondbacks, because for years, the Arizona Diamondbacks have been a bottom feeder. All right, we've got Brett here. Brett, feel free to talk, buddy. You're good to go.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I hear you, buddy. Welcome to the show. I was in the middle of speaking about the Diamondbacks. And yes, indeed, the Diamondbacks are for real. They're doing it with a lot of middle-tier players, not necessarily of the superstar caliber. But I do think what makes this team very likable is that they're playing for each other. You know, the team that's always in the mix, the Los Angeles Dodgers, still a very strong team, currently in second. And you've got a San Diego Padre team that has truly underachieved. Going into the year, they were my World Series pick.
Yeah,
buddy.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks thing, I mean, it's still pretty early. You know, it's early June. I don't believe they've had a whole lot of injuries, like most of the teams in the MLB. But it's like, watching an island of misfit toys that are, playing well together.
I like the way you put that. That makes a lot of sense. That's funny and actually very, very true.
And it's the same thing that, Tampa's doing, but Tampa's been doing this a lot longer.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say I wouldn't feel as comfortable as making the assimilation with Tampa's misfit toys because they're not strangers to winning anymore. They've been a quality team for the better part of a decade and a half now. And Kevin Cash is a phenomenal manager. But as the Diamondbacks go, 65 games in, 40-25, I think they're for real. And I do believe that whether they win the West or not, they are going to be a playoff team and a team that nobody necessarily wants to run into. There's a big familiarity with the Dodgers in that division, which would make a potential matchup between those two teams very interesting. The Dodgers have the payroll. The Dodgers on paper have the talent, but the Diamondbacks have definitely closed the gap, and they are currently leading that division, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm still picking the Padres. I've been a fan of that team. They're too talented not to win and not to make a push for the playoffs. Especially in that division. But it's going to be interesting down the stretch. The boys of summer, become the men of fall kind of mentality thing are gonna happen here soon. So we'll see what happens after the All-Star break. That's when we'll see things take a turn and see where everybody's at. But it's still pretty early to tell.
Brett, I would have to think that should the Padres not get their act in order, there is the potential for a managerial change. What Bob Melvin is not getting done there is nothing to be sneezed at. Similar to what Buck Showalter isn't getting done with New York. I think Buck Showalter gets a little bit of a pass because of all the Mets injuries. But when you look at the talent that the Padres have, they are not supposed to be doing this poorly. And I do think it's a reflection on the manager. It's going to be revealed as the season moves along if these guys can get their act together. From a talent standpoint, I don't think there's any denying that the Padres are supposed to be much better than they are. But they're not winning. So we got to see how that plays. And while we talk about the topic of other underachievers, I want to hit on the New York Mets here for a moment. And why the Mets must sell. Moving some overpriced contracts, in my opinion, is the move for the boys from Queens. And I think the first name I want to shoot at you is actually Max Scherzer. You're talking about a future Hall of Fame pitcher, top 2 in the rotation. He had a nice year last year with the help of Jacob deGrom towards the stretch run. deGrom is out. Verlander is in. But these Mets are overachieving in a horrible way, and they just do not have the same results from the rotation And I guess my question to you, Brett, if you're the Mets right now, granted, you're only 3 games out of the wild card, but you are under 500, you are underachieving, and I think most people feel that the wild card deficit is kind of smoke and mirrors. This team is pretty bad right now. You got Pete Alonso out for probably a month. Is it time to just kind of wave the white flag and see if you can get some assets for some pricey players and think about 2024?
I would say no. It's too early to pull the plug on this team. I mean, it's the second week of June. You know what I mean? So granted, they got a lot of old, veteran players on the team. The contracts are large. You know what I mean? So it's just they've already invested. You know what I mean? So they have a plan moving forward. We've already seen that plan, but they're just not performing up to par or over par, however you want to put it. The loss of Diaz really hurt them. To start their season. So I mean, they already started off rough, but it's still pretty early. I would say it's too early to pull the plug on this team just yet. Like you said, they're only 3 games out of the wild card. That's not that much when you really think about it. They still got time, and Alonso will be back here in a few weeks, and we'll see what happens then. But for the time being, it's too early to pull the plug.
I respect your opinion. I do disagree mainly for this reason. This team is 1-8 over their last 9 games. And I think when you're talking about approaching the midway point, they've got to know that it isn't working this year. And it is unlikely that they're going to make a playoff push this year. I mean, I've seen crazier things happen, but there is nothing evident for me to believe that the Mets are going to be able to right the ship this year. I think what you got to do as an organization, Pete Alonso is your superstar. He is your one potential face of the franchise. Off season, you got to make it a point to give that man an extension and make sure that he's going to be with your organization. I would consider moving on from Max. You can get some prospects, and Max can help a contender right now win another world championship, potentially going back to the Dodgers. There are teams that could be in the Max Scherzer sweepstakes, because I think my fear for the Mets is that if you don't get rid of some of these guys now, they might not have that value a year from now or down the road if you're thinking about like-mindedly making a move then. But to your point, this is a team that did come in with high expectations, so they might not want to pull the plug, but it's a mess out there. Buck Showalter's definitely on the hot seat. I, for one, don't even think that this is his fault, but like anything else, we've seen it in many sports. The coach, the manager, they get the first blame more times than not.
Truth.
So it's going to be interesting. I don't question that Buck Showalter's not a good manager. I mean, he was a damn good manager with the Yanks, the Orioles, the Rangers. He's been around. But I do believe that Buck Showalter could be on the outside looking in, because somebody's got to pay for this catastrophe.
Yeah, it ain't going to be Uncle Stevie. He's already paid.
Yeah, Uncle Steve, he paid a lot of money for this mediocrity. I know our buddy Richie Dorney definitely disappointed with what has been happening with his team. And I do want to give a shout out to the Dorney family for a moment. Great friend of my family growing up. Best friend of my late aunt, Miss Deborah Hicks. Mary Pat Dorney, we lost her 2 days ago. Richie Dorney's aunt. Richie is one of the biggest fans of my show and one of my longest standing friend. I just want to send my condolences to the Dorney family. And I just want to say, Rich, I'm thinking about all of you, but do understand that 2 best friends are once again reunited. So take solace in knowing that. I love you, Rich, and I am sorry for your family's loss. I do want to make a shout of that and point to that today on the show. Moving it along to the New York Yankees. We've got a power outage. Why the Yankees lineup isn't right without number 99. Yankees finish disappointing homestand and lose both series to Chicago and Boston after going 4-2 on the West Coast. This one hurts, Bretsky, because we were supposed to be licking our chops and playing some subpar competition, and that's why it goes to show you always got to play the games. But the injuries are taking a toll, man.
Yeah, not having number 99 in the lineup is definitely it's hurting. We need these other role players to step up. Big G is back, isn't he?
He's back in physical form. I'd like to see him be back in actual production form.
Yeah, he'll probably hit 10 home runs in a week and a half time frame, but not until July.
One would hope, because I'll tell you what, man, this team looks so bare naked over this homestand without number 99. And it's not just Big G struggling. Anthony Rizzo's 1 for his last 30, which drops his average down to like around 274, which is still respectable. But Rizzo's in a bad slump. Volpe's been struggling with the bat, but the Yankees are taking the long window approach with him. And we're just not scoring runs. We lit up the scoreboard in Seattle. We lit up the scoreboard a little bit and got timely hits in LA. But since coming home, the offense has just not been right. And it just goes to show you just how important Aaron Judge truly is to this team. I mean, when he's not in that lineup, from a strategy level, you can approach that lineup as an opponent in so many different ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that come into place. That win against Boston. Devers is still the Garrett Cole killer.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
He's got his.
Yeah, he loves to hit against the Yankees in general. I must admit that. And Boston, while I don't consider them a playoff contender, they're still not any slouch. They are literally a 500 team right now, sitting in last place.
And that postponed the game, from those forest fires. That orange sky that lit up, all of New York State.
Yeah, I definitely think that played a bit of a momentum kill for the Yanks as well.
100% that did. You know what I mean? So, a lot of things, came into play, but the injuries to Judge is, not helping the case.
Well,
but, they're still in the mix, and, it's a tough division. It's the best division in the MLB as far as I'm concerned, the most competitive division. So we'll see where we're at, when Judge does come back. It's hit or miss right now. I honestly don't know how the story's going to be, come All-Star break.
Well, I will say this. These next few weeks are very important for the Yankees in terms of just not getting too far out of striking distance for second and even potentially first. The sweet spot, if you're talking about kind of just while you're injured, you don't want to be any more than 7-8 games out of the picture. You start getting double digits out of the picture, your basic focus becomes the wild card. You no longer consider winning the division at this point. You're talking about a team, to their credit, our bullpen has been awesome, and it's been our saving grace with all these injuries. But you're missing your center fielder, Harrison Bader. You're missing your captain, your right fielder, Aaron Judge. That's a lot of production in that lineup right there.
Mm-hmm.
You're missing Nestor Cortez, a top 3 pitcher for your team, and a guy that was brought in to be a co-ace with Garrett Cole has yet to pitch a game this year in Carlos Rodon. So there is definitely a lot of frustration with what's going on. And, I have not exactly been the biggest Aaron Boone fan, but I will admit this also is not on him. You can only do the best you can do with what you've got. And right now, you just got to kind of weather the storm and hope that guys just start getting healthy. I do want to hit for a brief moment on a couple of the other Yankee foes before we hit on the best team in baseball. The Orioles' sweep of the lowly Royals And the Blue Jays are literally a game behind the Yankees. They're on their heels. Britsky, do you have a feeler for a team like the Blue Jays? They did lose this series 2 out of 3, but they are right on the Yankees' heels as well as the Houston Astros' heels for that final wild card.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hit on the Blue Jays before the season even started. I picked them to be right in the mix, if not the top seed or second seed in that division. Their lineup is just nasty.
Yeah, that it is.
And they're gonna put up runs. They're gonna put up runs. The question is if their starting rotation can make it through the fifth or sixth inning, and that way it's less pressure off their bullpen. But they're a team that can manufacture a lot of runs. You know what I mean? So I picked them at the start of the year to really make a push and make a run in the playoffs, especially in this division that we're in. But no, I had a lot of not going to say hope for this team, but I had a lot of confidence that they can make some noise.
It's kind of funny because I've said at different junctures of the year that if this Blue Jays team underachieves, Don Mattingly will be the next manager because he did take that job similar to the reference I made was Eric Bieniemy going to Washington. When you're the assistant head coach, or in Don Mattingly's case, the bench coach right next to the main man, you are one step away from being the main man. Not saying that that's going to happen. The Blue Jays have been up and down, but they've been consistently in the middle. That division, to your point, very competitive, but a fear of mine is this. One thing I will give the Blue Jays on a consistency basis is that they do have a multitude of bats. I think the Yankees have the better bullpen. I think the starting pitching kind of cancels each other out because the Yankees are not at full strength right now with the starters. They haven't been all year.
Correct.
But on paper, especially if you extract Aaron Judge from that Yankee lineup, the Blue Jays are a more talented offense. With Judge in there, with Bader in there, with Rizzo playing his game, I think it's a conversation. Yankees need to get healthy. That goes without saying. And like I said, Baltimore, this was not – I knew they were better, but I didn't think that the pitching was going to arrive. And, Cedric Mullins has been on the IL. They're still doing it without him. You got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Definitely got to give Baltimore a lot of credit. But before we get out of here, I want to hit on the main alpha dog. Tampa Bay Rays, 2 out of 3 against Zappy's Rangers. Matchup of the 2 best teams in the American League, at least in my opinion. And I got to say, man, this is a statement. Shane McClanahan over this weekend series improved to 10-1. Their stolen base streak finally came to an end yesterday. But my God, are they good at home? They are a tough team to beat in St. Pete.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if the shoe is on the other foot, playing in Texas, I think Texas definitely has that advantage.
For sure.
But yeah, they're both. I mean, Jesus, that Rangers team. I mean, oh my God, wow, they're blowing my mind right now, man. The amount of runs that they're putting up, the streak that they were on,
and these are the 2 best teams in terms of run differential in the positive sense.
They're doing it without DeGrom. You know what I mean?
And most teams that DeGrom has played on, that's been the reality. You got to do it without DeGrom because, unfortunately, the poor guy hasn't been healthy. But, Nathan Eovaldi, the kind of year that he's having, the Rays were able to push Martin Perez out of the game early the other day. But, you got an MVP candidate in Marcus Semien. You have a guy like Corey Seager who, if he continues at his rate, could enter MVP discussions as well. You got Aroldis Garcia. This is a team that is playing together. This is a team that is motivated. And this is a team that has taken advantage of the fact that the Houston Astros, who have been a staple of success in that division, have not been the healthiest, similar to our New York Yankees. But I got to tell you, dude, I try to talk from the hip and I try to tell the truth. If the Yankees are healthy, in the second half. I do think that we have the depth to make a World Series run. But these two teams that just finished this weekend series, they are in the driver's seat as far as I'm concerned, with everybody looking up at them right now.
Yep, 100% agree.
Before we get out of here, just want to remind the viewing audience that on Wednesday at 10 a.m., we're going to have a special guest, Mr. Aaron Moorhead. Oh, boy. Of the hated Philadelphia Eagles. We say hated because Zappy, myself, Mr. Idris, we are not fans of the Eagles. Eagles are the class of the division, though. They are where the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants hope to be in the near future. We're going to speak to Aaron about his football journey from player to coach. And a cool little caveat about Aaron Moorhead. He and his father, Emery, are the only father and son duo to each win a Super Bowl as players. Emery with the legendary 85 Chicago Bears. And Aaron with the 06 Colts, who oddly enough beat the Bears. That is going back to 06. We're talking about the Devin Hester game where he returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. Very excited. You know, we're going to have an unbiased football conversation, but we're also going to probably throw a little trash talk because, as you know, the Eagles have been a thorn in the side of the New York Giants for far too long. But, you know, I keep it fair. They are a hell of an organization and a team that I hope we are in a better position to challenge a little more competitively this year. I am very proud of what my New York Giants have accomplished, but we are still a work in progress. And I know that for Mr. Zappy, his Dallas Cowboys, it is most definitely a prove it year. So for Dak, for Mike McCarthy. And, you know, last year, those two games against the Philadelphia Eagles, neither game had the quarterbacks that started. So we did not get to see Jalen Hurts against Dak Prescott last year. So obviously that will be interesting. Dak has had the number of the NFC East for the most part, but we did not get to see Dak versus Hurts last year. And as many of you know, the Eagles came up a few plays short in last year's Super Bowl, a very controversial call on former Giant James Bradbury. Hell of a Super Bowl it was. Bretsky, anything that you want to say on your way out of here?
No, I mean, you basically covered everything. I just want to give my 2 cents on, the NBA Finals game tonight. I think Denver's gonna put this away. They're back home, and Miami still hasn't been able to stop that 1-2 punch. With the Joker and Jamal.
So you disagree with me? You don't think Miami's got one more road dub in them?
No, not tonight. I think Denver's going to put it away, and they're going to become champions tonight.
Well, I got to say this, Brett. If you are correct, and you may very well be correct, you think about former players that played for that organization. You got a guy like a Dikembe Mutombo, LaFonso Ellis, Carmelo Anthony, your boy from the Cuse, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, formerly Chris Jackson. Idris and I really spoke on him the other day, saying that not only was he the first Colin Kaepernick in terms of a professional athlete, making a stand for what he believed in during his playing career, but in terms of inside the lines, probably the most comparable player of the 90s to the great Steph Curry. And I told Idris, I said, if that man played in this era, history would remember him a lot differently. And if you're not familiar with him, I might have to run with the Nuggets in 2K just to show you how badass that guy was.
Heard.
That was going back to that 94 squad that upset the Seattle Sonics. The iconic photo of Dikembe Mutombo grabbing the basketball. Man, that was one of the bigger upsets in NBA history. And it's funny because they were an 8 seed. And now they're going to potentially win their first NBA title against an 8 seed.
Now, do you think if that series was a 7-game series instead of a 5, do you think Seattle wins it?
That's a great question, Brett. I'm going to go with no for one simple reason. I saw something very interesting with Gary Payton. It was a very old article from the Seattle paper after they had lost that series, because I was looking into that series on a deeper level recently, just out of my own curiosity. And what I found interesting is that Gary Payton said amongst his closest friends and confidants that even when they were up 2-0, he had a very foul feeling that they were not going to win that series. And when that's coming from the team's best player, and you really don't have any true evidence as to why you would feel that way when you're the best team in the NBA and you're up 2-0, mainly because of what Gary said, I'm going to say no. But then again, we don't know because it didn't happen. But some of those weird upsets, like similar to the Knicks and the Heat, back in '99, the Knicks were an 8 seed knocking out the Heat, ultimately going to the NBA Finals. The Heat have accomplished something that only the Knicks did going into this year, going into this finals, I should say. I think that was part of the motivation why the NBA got away from the 5-game series, because I think they were tired of seeing the 8 seed scare the living daylights out of the 1 seed and every once in a while pulling off the mammoth upset.
Yep.
Because if I'm not mistaken, I do remember this. The first year that the first round went to 7 games, one of your all-time favorites, Tracy McGrady, his Orlando Magic were up 3-1 on the Toronto Raptors. So if the rules were still the same, they would have advanced. Tracy McGrady, one of the most unlucky basketball players in terms of getting wins. The poor guy was on the bench when Ray Allen hit that friggin' 3 where all the Miami Heat fans left and tried to sneak back into the arena. McGrady was literally a Tim Duncan rebound if Pop didn't take him out. One of the worst decisions of Pop's career. And that cost Tracy McGrady a ring after a phenomenal career, so
100%.
Also, guys, stay tuned because Brett and I are going to continue in the near future to give you more of our breakdowns with the legendary players of various positions. We hit you with that Point Gods episode, and we're going to have more of those coming out. But make sure to tune in 10 a.m. Wednesday. Mr. Aaron Moorhead joining the show. Definitely going to be in the hot seat amongst the Cowboy and Giant panel, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Until next time, for my guy, Mr. Brett Bandig. Brett, thank you for hanging with me, man. I know you're on your way to work. I really appreciate you.
All good, brother. All good. I'd love to talk sports anytime you want.
Absolutely. Well, to the viewers, we are out. See you on Wednesday. Bretsky, thanks again. Have a great rest of your Monday.